Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, going over the usual topics, the news, well, really none of that stuff. None of that stuff at all this week. We're not going to have a typical News and Week in Review. We're not even going to have a schedule or the videos of the past week because, well, there's a lot of things still in flux, and a lot of things still in flux as far as how this past week went. And so this is going to be a break from our usual Week in Review in the sense that I'm filming this a week and a half in advance because of the fact that I'm currently in Vegas. As we speak, I'm currently in Vegas at the World Series of Board Gaming, and I'm trying to juggle everything ahead of time, and I had a choice. I can either film this at the last minute, and try to stuff it all in and get everything time-stamped and thumbnailed, or for the first time in a very long time, I could film a week in review a week and a half ahead of time, which also means there's not much to really review. I don't have any news pieces. That was reserved for last week. I don't have anything to cover as far as, well, anything really, and so we're going to go ahead and dive into something else entirely, which is probably in the title of this video. That's just good YouTube marketing. 5 reasons not to back a Kickstarter. Or 5 ways not to back a Kickstarter. You see, I sat here and I was trying to think through, what do I do for a week in review if I'm not doing a week in review? And I didn't have any very good options, but I did know about the fact that right now, because of the fact that there's so many things I'm currently backing on Kickstarter, I've been very good for a very long time. For the past several months, I've been backing fewer and fewer things, only getting the occasional, well, occasional is relative. Everyone's going to have their own bar, but for me, backing like 4 things a month is a safe month. It is a conservative month when there were months that I was previously backing 11 or 12 things, but September looks like it's a month where I'm going to be backing 11 or 12 things again, and so I thought this is a good month to talk to you, and perhaps to me as well, about 5 ways not to back a Kickstarter campaign. 5 ways not to back a crowdfunding campaign. We should be more specific. This includes GameFound, includes BackKit, includes anything. 5 ways to not back a crowdfunding campaign that is otherwise tempting you. And I'm going to apply it to 5 games that I, am or have already backed because, I didn't say I'm the best at listening to my own advice, but maybe there's something here you can take out of it. And for whatever it's worth, while these particular 5 games are games where I have not listened to it, in many cases I do. In many cases I do use this as an excuse, as an opportunity to try to avoid backing a crowdfunding campaign that is otherwise pulling me in, because the nature of crowdfunding campaigns is they have an allure over us that otherwise isn't there. They have an allure over us that pulls us in a way that normally seeing it typically in retail just wouldn't call us in. It wouldn't really see us, which I guess, let's start off with that as the very first reason. Reason number 1 is if you wouldn't have gotten the game if it weren't on crowdfunding. If it weren't on a crowdfunding platform, if it weren't currently in front of your eyes, if in any other shape, form, or context, if you would not have backed the game, why are you backing it now? And for me, my most obvious pick at the moment is going to be Keyforge. Keyforge Winds of Exchange, that over on GameFound, I have sadly backed it. I say sadly because I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it that I'm pulled in by, but they have all the stretch goals, and they have this custom, option as far as getting your own unique deck and all that stuff, and your own unique playmat, and those things seem fun. The playmats look great, and I did, for the sake of myself, I did grab a bunch of Keyforge decks recently to be able to try it out, but I haven't actually tried it out yet, and so suddenly, this game that has existed for a very long time, that I have avoided for a very long time, is on crowdfunding, and I went ahead and backed it. And I shouldn't. To be very clear, I shouldn't. Keyforge has existed for a very long time, and I have not been compelled enough by it. I've looked at it and said, hey, it's another collectible thing. Why do I need 300 decks that are different to just go ahead and dive into it? Especially if you look at the aftermarket on Keyforge, where very often Keyforge decks sell for dollars after the fact once you wait. If you're willing to wait, if you're not in a rush, if you're not a big-time collector or playing in any tournaments, then you can wait around and get very, very, very cheap decks. And yet I'm backing it on crowdfunding. But you shouldn't. I shouldn't. If you wouldn't have gotten the game in retail, if you wouldn't have gotten the game in any other form, the fact that the game suddenly exists on a crowdfunding site should not be enough of a reason to pull you in. What is it about crowdfunding that compels us? What is it about a game that exists for who knows how long? You'll see DC Comics, and you've avoided it for the past 10 years, but suddenly there's this giant Kickstarter with the 20th anniversary edition and all these extra things and fun stuff, and suddenly this thing that never really pulled you in enough is now pulling you in. It's a terrible reason to back a Kickstarter campaign. A crowdfunding campaign. It's a terrible reason to jump on board. It's just the fact that it's there, just the fact that it exists somehow calls your name. It's not a good reason. Remind yourself how you would treat that product if it were on the store shelf in front of you at that price point for that exact thing. Remind yourself how quickly you turn around and walk away. Remind yourself of how the fact that when it delivers and you see people selling that exact pledge for the exact price they paid for it, how you often will turn them down. Not always. There are campaigns where you won't, but if this is one that you would, if this is one where somebody was like, hey, I just got my Keyforge Winds of Exchange pledge in, selling it for what I paid for it, here you go. If you'd say no to that, then why would you say yes to getting it now when you're basically giving up your money a year earlier and you're still not getting the thing till later? It makes no sense, and yet we do it anyway. That's reason number one, is don't do it if you wouldn't have gotten it in retail. Reason number two is if it's more content for a game you don't play enough. Now, this one's not technically my fault. It really technically isn't my fault. This is Dice Throne Santa versus Krampus is going to be the campaign I use for this. Dice Throne is a fun game. It's a game I enjoy. It's a game I'm always happy to play, but it's a game which I already have 24 characters of, 16 of Dice Throne 1 and 2, and then another 8 of Marvel. That's 24 characters, and I don't play that game enough to justify having 24 characters. I barely play the game enough to justify having 8, and yet I have 24 characters. Why in the world do I need more content for a game that I do not play enough? I have not played all the Dice Throne characters I own even. I played all the Marvel ones, and I think maybe a little over half of the other ones. But I haven't played them all, certainly not multiple times each one. Why do I need more content for a game that I don't play enough of? This could apply to an expansion. It could also apply to that 14th version of Zombicide that you're getting your hands on when you haven't even touched your Zombicide Invader from 3 years ago. More content for a game you already don't play enough it's just a bad reason to get things on Kickstarter. It's a bad reason to go ahead and hit back now when you know full well. If you got that Burn Cycle campaign, you love Burn Cycle, so do I love Burn Cycle, but why did you go ahead and back the new content for the next Burn Cycle campaign when you know you haven't come close to experiencing the old content for the old Burn Cycle campaign? It makes no sense to continue to double down on expansion after expansion after expansion if you aren't already going through the content that you have. It's a great reason to run away from a crowdfunding campaign. It's not saying gone forever, just wait till next time. It'll show up, it'll be around. Most games do stick around in some way, shape, and form, and those that don't, it's usually for a reason. But expansions to well-loved franchises, those stick around for a bit, and there's always a secondhand market. Maybe you'll pay a bit more for it, but who cares? The amount of money you saved on the 15 campaigns you didn't get will pay for the 1 or 2 you actually decide down the road that you do want. Reason number 3 is let the game price you out. And this is a fun one. Come on, campaigns are victim to this left, right, and center, but for today I'm going to use Rivet Wars Reloaded as an example. When a campaign offers you a pledge, and the pledge is appealing, and the pledge is tempting, and you want the game, that's great. But when the campaign offers you 14 add-ons and 3 big boxes and 2 other variations of it, and suddenly that price balloons upwards from that $70, $80, $90 almost reasonable price point up to $300, $400 for the all-in, when a campaign starts giving you that, and now you have a choice on the table between the choice of getting the campaign, of going ahead and backing it at the base pledge, backing it at the all-in, or walking away. Use your FOMO. Use the fact that you kind of want to get all or nothing. Use that. But don't use it to get all, use it to get the nothing. If a campaign prices you out, if a campaign offers you more and more and more, and you anyways can't get it all, or you anyways think you shouldn't get it all, at that point that's a good opportunity to let you walk away from it entirely, to let that be the trigger that pushes you away from backing the campaign at all, because let's be honest, you probably didn't need the game anyway. You have plenty of unplayed games on your shelf, so let the game price you out. When a campaign starts blooming in price, from add-ons, from expansions, from deluxifications, from playmats, from art books, from whatever it is that they're asking, that whatever it is that they're offering, as soon as you start to feel like you are missing out on something, use that to make yourself miss out on everything and save yourself a few dollars. It's usually a good excuse. Reason number 4 is waiting until retail. And this is one where usually I do this, but in the case of something like, for instance, Legacy of You or the Fox Experiment, those are good opportunities recently where I didn't wait for retail, even though usually I do. Usually I do wait for retail when the game is more comparable between the retail and the Kickstarter. When I think that the retail experience is going to give me anyways what I want, why not wait? And not just to wait till the retail pricing, but also to wait till the retail reviews come out. To see that, you have a flood of reviews after the fact when the game lands, instead of having 2 or 3 Kickstarter previews with semi-opinions folded into them. And you can instead wait for an actual full-on retail coverage from multiple channels talking about the game. You can let that and the combined price point of the game being lower, possibly for a few less deluxifications, but you don't need screen printing on every single thing. And those 4 promos aren't always going to make the game better. Not always can you wait for retail. Sometimes the game is Kickstarter exclusive. Sometimes the game offers you enough real extras and add-ons that it vastly changes the experience. But when the game doesn't do that, when the game doesn't drastically change the experience, when the game does give you basically what you are going to be playing anyways, and you're not missing out on that much, use that as an opportunity to wait for retail, to wait for the retail pricing, to wait for the retail reviews, and possibly to just wait until the fact that it's no longer front and center. Going back to reason 1, if it's not on crowdfunding and you wouldn't have gotten it, maybe you'll find out by waiting for retail that it shows up on your retail shelf, and even though it's only $40 instead of $60, maybe you're just not tempted enough anymore because it's no longer on a crowdfunding platform. And reason number 5 is ask yourself if you have something Equitable already that is taking up that playtime that you're still not playing as is. Basically asking yourself, where does this game fit in your collection? Where does it actually fit, and when is it getting played? Sure, it looks tempting. Sure, it's appealing. That 4-player game that plays in 2.5 hours with this player count in this situation, in that scenario, and that heavyweight Euro, that dungeon crawler, whatever the experience is, ask yourself when you're playing that and which games are you picking, which games are you picking this one over that you were previously going to play. For me, this is going to be Dune Warfare Arrakis is the most recent one, where I backed Dune Warfare Arrakis and come on. And I enjoy the game. Very much I enjoy the game. I played it online and I really liked it. I'm excited for it. I am. But guess what? It's fighting for the same space that games like Rum and Bones are fighting for. It's fighting for the same space that games like Six Siege are fighting for. A 2-player game that runs for 2 hours and is a bit of a beast to set up and table and get played. And I have to dive in and remember all the rules that I haven't played for like 7 months since the last time I pulled it out. It's fighting for a space that already those games aren't hitting the table. Now, to be fair, Six Siege isn't hitting the table because it's not here yet, but Rum and Bones is a game that I table maybe once a year, and Dune Warfare Arrakis is fighting for that same exact category. A 2-player, 2-hour-long game is not something that I table often, and so if I don't table Rum and Bones as often as I'd like to, why am I bringing competition to the table that I also won't table as often as I'd like to? What's the logic behind getting a game that you're anyways going to pick other games over it? Whatever that category might be, and maybe it's not a 2-player, 2-hour-long game. Maybe it's the fact that 4-player area control games, you just have too many in your collection. I know I certainly do. And so when I bring a 4-player area control game to the table, Wonderland's War, I just played Wonderland's War. I've been really enjoying it, but also with the problem and the caveat that I think Wonderland's War plays best at 4 players. And if the members of my group don't like it as much as I have so far, then it may be competing against games like Blood Rage and Inish and Kemet and Cyclades. And as good as Wonderland's War is, maybe it won't hold up against that pressure. When you back a game, don't just ask yourself for your level of interest in the game. Ask yourself for your level of interest at that player count, at that genre, at that general feeling of when the game is going to get tabled. And ask yourself if you're going to pick it over those other things. Because if the answer is no, you're just backing something pretty that's going to sit on your shelf for an undetermined amount of time before you eventually realize what you could have realized now. And those are 5 reasons not to back a game. If you wouldn't have gotten it if it weren't on crowdfunding. If it's more content for a game you already don't play enough. If the game starts pricing you out through all the Kickstarters, extras, and prices, and add-ons, and extensions, and all those different things. If the retail, you could just wait for retail and get a similar experience, even if it's not the exact same. Or if it's something that you already have other games you're playing in that spot. Those are all good reasons not to back a campaign. As I look at my schedule and as I see all the crowdfunding campaigns currently going on, the ones already happening and the ones continuing to come up, we are hitting that peak crowdfunding season right now. There are different seasons within crowdfunding that are more and less popular. Right now is usually the most popular season, right before holiday season, right as people are trying to get in all those gifts and that extra cursory spending people do on themselves, but before you've actually gone through the actual holiday season and people are depleting their credit cards on whatever Walmart or Target shopping trip you're going on. And so right now, right in this period, August, September, well, not August, September, October, and a drop of November, that's when you're going to start seeing the most crowdfunding campaigns before things start calming down towards the end of November. That means people are going to be getting their campaigns in, people are going to be putting their games in front of you, and you're going to be tempted by a lot of games. I know that after several months of being fairly self-control as far as what I do and don't back, I know that September has been trying. And I assume it has for many as well, just watching the campaigns add up. And as much as it's fun to delve into this hobby, as much as it is enjoyable and I really do like it, remember that for every game that, at least on my end, for every game, I have to remind myself that for every game I keep, for every game I back and I keep, there's also a game that I back, I try it once or twice, and I'm like, you know what, it's fine, I can move on from this game. And sometimes I'll save myself the time of the rule books and the game and the selling of the game. I get my money back. Most of the time I back responsibly, so I do get my money back when I sell it later, but I can save myself the time, the hassle, all the things, if I just applied some of these reasons beforehand instead of after the fact. In any case, that's this week's Week in Review. Not your usual format, not your usual conversation, but something different instead. There should still be videos going up today. The rest is all the same. We'll still have the usual everything else. All the other stuff are done, are scheduled. We got the whole bucket load of videos for last week and next week all ready to go. Just this one is a strong break from the usual format. In any case, I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. Heck, I hope I'm enjoying myself. It's a week and a half into the future and I have no clue what's going on at the moment. And in any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And I hope you have a good one.